All right, we're live. Drew, we appreciate Randy and I appreciate you being on. The show today because this week we're interviewing all. I'm interviewing all young entrepreneurs, and Randy and I have been looking forward to interviewing you. And you've been. My parents always raised me that you can learn something new from somebody older and from somebody younger. And I'm loving seeing all these young entrepreneurs spur up because of COVID and not being able to go away. But I'm going to call you the original entrepreneur because you were doing it pre-COVID and before a lot of these other kids. You're 14 years old. You're the CEO of DREWCO, and you started it when you were 12 or 13, Drew.
I think I was 12.
12 years old. Yeah. So I want to tell everybody about, in less than 30 seconds, a little bit about DREWCO, and then we're going to jump into the entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, DREWCO started when I was about 12. I was probably in 4th grade, I believe. And it was just a way to make a lot more, just some money so I could spend. And I just was, I didn't have much going on. So I thought, what was a good way to make money? And so that's how we kind of started.
This is great,
isn't it? It's going to be 12 years old, right? So Drew, so I have a question. So I think a lot of 12-year-olds.
I have to ask a question, Drew. So the other kids in your class, did they have more going on?
Not necessarily. No, I just I had the more will to make money. I was the one that wanted, I had things to buy, I guess.
And that's the key. You had the will and the drive.
Correct.
Right. Exactly.
So let's talk about that because there's will, there's drive, and then because let's say if you and the next person next to you both have will and drive, to me the differentiator is the execution, right?
Right.
So how did you? Because I think this is inspiring for 12-year-old, 13, 14, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, etc. How did you have the discipline and what did you tap into to actually execute your will and your drive?
So how did I actually, how did
you go from not procrastinating to actually executing? What were your steps? How did you plan? How did you start marketing? What did you start doing to execute on a daily basis to generate some business so you could actually get the money?
Right. So the first thing I did was put flyers out. Actually, that's how I met you. I think I put a flyer in your door, and then you ordered some cookies for me. I do remember that.
The best brownies in the state of Michigan.
Yeah. So what I really wanted was the reason I really started was because I wanted something. I wanted a drone really bad. So, and I didn't have the money. So that's how I just was like, how do I make the money to buy the drone? So I put the flyers out. I decided what were 4 things that I was good at or what I could do. So then when I got customers and then I started, really working hard, and it kind of carried from there.
So Drew, before the actual, putting things into motion and before executing, I know your dad is sitting there with you. I almost want to have him on the call and ask the question. Did you ask your father and mother, did you ask them for money first and they said no?
Did I ask them for money? I definitely asked them.
Wanted. Did you say, I would like A or B or C? And they said, no, we want you to work for it. And that's what drove you?
It wasn't it was, I would ask for money for ingredients and I would generally pay them back. So yeah, they were always really helpful and supportive. That's for sure. And so are you talking about for the drone? Could you?
Yeah. So let's say a drone is not necessarily inexpensive. It's pretty expensive. So.
Oh yeah. This isn't your, gas station drone. This is a real,
Right.
Are you saying did they pay for it? They did not pay for it. No.
Right. So dad being the lawyer would say, I'm going to have you execute a promissory note with an interest rate, or you can simply go to work.
Right.
And he said, those terms are not acceptable, Dad. I'm going to open up Drew Lash.
Yes.
Correct.
It's DREWCO LLC. But
DREWCO, I'm so sorry.
Right.
No, we have the LLC at the end because it makes it sound, it's the real deal.
That's the real deal. You're the original entrepreneur, the OE.
But Drew, you are the real deal. So let's talk about, so you have this will, you have this drive, you have this business idea, you want to make some money. How did you decide what to do, right? How did you decide what your services were going to be?
Well, I kind of just chose things that I liked and enjoyed to do. And I definitely, it's good to do something that you're actually good at. So, I always thought I was good at baking, and I was like, if I could make money and I actually enjoyed it, that would be a lot of fun. And it's, then there's stuff like taking in mail and papers and watering plants. It's just like, it's not that hard to do. And it was manageable. So I thought that was a good idea.
So, one of the things that I think is so interesting about your generation and the millennial generations are that your generations are very focused on doing what you love and doing research to really kind of stay in that space. And so a lot of times when you meet people who are older in business who are doing things because they just kind of are doing it, but they're not doing it because they love it. And so, granted, you're only 14, but how did you know to like start that you could actually make money doing what you love to do? I think that's a question that a lot of people ask themselves, like, how can I take my unique ability, what I'm good at, and actually make money doing it? So you've done it. How did you kind of come to that conclusion?
I just it was just kind of easy. I just chose what I wanted to do, and then I kind of just had a plan for it, I guess. I never really, pretty much it was pretty much like that.
Yeah. So if you formulated in your head that you were going to do A, B, or C, was it the customer that got you thinking about D, E, and F, or was it you simply saying, I'm only going to do this and nothing else?
Actually, that's a good question, because a lot of it was the customer or a client would just say, hey, can you do this? And it wouldn't necessarily be one of my specialties or areas that I, would work on. And I would always say yes, because it was just, a way to make money. And I never said no to the task, I guess. Yeah.
And that, Jonathan, what you and I have always spoken about in our prior podcasts is the pivot and being open to change.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you? How have you evolved the company? Post COVID, Drew. Like, are there things you're doing differently than you did pre-COVID?
Yes, definitely. So a lot of it was baking, and I don't blame people for not wanting baked goods, because it's not as safe or in the COVID times. So I kind of moved on to different areas that might be more needed in the season or just time.
Such as what?
Such as lawn. I mow a lot of lawns now. I weed a lot. It's a lot of outdoorsy tasks. So a lot of weeding, a lot of lawn mowing, edging, anything really. A lot of that.
Nice. I will say your brownies, when they're back, I hope that they're in high demand. Randy, I'm going to send your family some brownies when you're
brownies. Okay.
What are some of the lessons you've learned about working with people your age or people older than you? I would imagine a lot of people that you're working for are older than you. So what are some of the lessons you've learned, business lessons, as far as growing and running your business?
Well, you always have to spend money to make money, because you have to invest in yourself for the company, because at first, I didn't have a weed whacker, I didn't have a gas powered blower, and those were something I definitely thought would come helpful in the lawn mowing business. So I've then invested in it. Even took a small loan from my parents, and they were very helpful. So I got a new lawnmower as well, and sometimes I'll partner up with my friends, split the revenue, because if it's a really big job, which would always be helpful.
So in terms of what you're doing, Drew, do you find, in any business, there's always competition? Right. With respect to competition, do you have other people or, peers of yours that want to, if they're simply saying, well, I can do what Drew does, and they try and they fizzle out? or are they simply saying, hey, let's do jobs together? In other words, you're motivating them.
Yeah, a lot of it's like, hey, you're already grown. I think I'd rather partner with you is what a lot of people would do. I'd rather partner than have to create the whole new business idea. It's just easier for them, and it works for me.
It's great.
So do you have employees, Drew, or do you bring them in on a per job basis?
I bring them in as needed. You know, if there's ever a big job and I can't handle it by myself, then I'll bring them in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I want to compliment you because collaboration is really key, and one of the things that kills businesses is greed, and so it's nice to hear that you're looking at it and saying, hey, I can I can grow elements of my business by collaborating, and then the money is almost secondary. It's just about growing the business, having fun. I think that's so important. That falls under the investing in yourself, right? How can you grow and scale? And so when you look at DREWCO, because now it's been around for a couple of years, you're talking about pivoting through post-COVID. How do you see yourself? Because you're starting high school next year,
right?
How do you see yourself growing and scaling DREWCO from when it started in early middle school through high school?
How do I see myself growing?
How do you see the company growing? Yeah.
How am I growing? Well, I wanna grow as a bigger lawn in service. So I want to be year round. I would like to in the winter start shoveling snow, and I would have to definitely have people help me with that. Because snow is a lot of work. It's hard and heavy. So I would like to do that, and I would like to grow. I would like to have a lot more people that would be working for me. I would like that, and I would like to have the company kind of work for itself. That's what I would love.
Do you see, Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to ask the question, is there an age limit to anyone that you would hire? In other words, what is too old and what is too young?
Too old. I don't really think there's an age limit necessarily, as long as you're hardworking and if you can get the job done, then I would be totally fine with you working for me.
I love it. So Drew, I want to ask you a question too. I want to tap back into your will, your drive, your execution, because I think right now a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do for the summer. Your age, we're seeing a lot of companies pop up. What advice would you give somebody in the beginning steps of starting a company, right? So you've been there. So what advice would you give somebody? Let's stick to just kind of your age, but it's kind of universal guidance. So, how can somebody get started with their own gig?
You definitely can't be afraid to fail or you can't be afraid of what other people think about you or how you're doing your business. Because if it works, then for you, then it's, you shouldn't be afraid. Because if I have a job that takes a really long time, and I sometimes I overthink, like, oh, what if the client's like, ooh, it's kind of, it's a really long time. I don't know, like, if he's that great. But then again, why should they care about how long it'll take? As long as if the lawn looks great, then it'll look good, and it shouldn't matter how long, or like, it should just matter about the final product.
I love it. Randy? So on that point, Drew, I'm just thinking, here's a hypothetical. I want to see how you handle this. So I engage you to take care of landscaping for me, specifically to plant flowers. Okay. I like my flowers planted before June 1st. But as we know, in May, you can still get snow. You can still get frost, right? So this just happened to me, where I asked my landscaper, I want my flowers in by my son Noah's 24th birthday, his birthday on May 24th. They weren't in. So when you said that earlier, that was sort of his point to me was, what do you care if the flowers aren't planted? They're going to get planted. But I got upset because I wanted them in on the 24th. So when a client gives you a direction, but Mother Nature isn't going to cooperate, or there is an event that is beyond your control, how have you handled that in the past, and what did you learn from that?
How would I would really just try to talk to the client and like explain to them the weather or what might affect it, and try to just overcome as much as we can. Try to get most of it as much as we can done, and just kind of that's like interesting because I never really thought about that, but I would just try to do as much as we can get done as quick as possible.
And your natural instinct was exactly the answer that I love. Communication. Communication, just like in my business being a lawyer, what John does for a living, if you communicate, whether it's good or bad, communication fosters that understanding and sets the expectation. So your instinct is spot on. This is great. It's great. Exactly what my landscaper failed to do. He didn't communicate. And when I called, he wouldn't answer.
Well, maybe you need a landscaper, Randy. I mean, you guys. Well, you know, and you guys are talking about something that's so important, right? Effective communication, accountability, a little bit of empathy, and gratitude for just even having the business in the first place. And to me, those are such important elements of business. But I do want to go back to this real quickly, Drew. So somebody who is starting a business, right? Just your advice: don't be afraid to fail. Don't care what people think. How should people plan? How, you know, you can tell that you've done a lot of planning. How do you plan?
How would I plan? I actually have a whiteboard in my room. I have everything written down. I use a lot of you should just use the technology you're given, and there's so many ways to be prepared, like, you know, the calendar app, the notes, or any way you can just prepare yourself. You should always be prepared for the worst. You should always be ready to get there and sweat, and just, you know, hard work pays off. It's really tough work sometimes, but you should definitely be ready for that. And just as long as you get there on time, then I'm sure it'll all work out.
Love it. I love it. You know, a lot of company. Randy, you have a question?
No, I was just processing and saying that I wish Drew was older and he was a lawyer. I'd hire him.
You bring up a really good point, Drew, as far as being prepared for the worst. I think a lot of companies, because COVID hit so suddenly, many companies had never prepared for the worst, right? Companies were doing well, and they just didn't take the time to brainstorm and think about plan B, plan C, and plan D. And so as you're looking at you know, planning for the worst, what are some things you do to plan for the worst? Like, what are the tentacles and the lanes that you look at?
Planning for the worst. We never really had to, like, the corona did not totally affect us as much as you would think, besides the baking, because a lot of the stuff we would normally be doing could still happen, because a lot of it's on contacted. Like, you don't need to be in contact or, like, with the client. So a lot of it worked out pretty well, but we would plan just like anyone else would. We would try to figure out a different way to do something, or we would plan around the obstacle. So yeah.
Has there been a customer that you turned down or fired?
Well, it's always good to know when to say no. So one time, somebody once tried to hire me, but they wouldn't actually pay me. They would pay me in, like, a stress ball and some slime or something like that. That's what they said.
Wait, say that again?
So they wanted to hire me to take care of a guinea pig or something. And I've never done that before, but I would be interested. But they said, by the ways, we can't pay you, but I'll give you some slime and a stress ball. Like that's definitely a time to be like, I know what I'm worth, and I don't want to be lowballed, or I know when to say no, and I just had to turn down that,
That you hit on a very good point. I mean, know your worth.
Yes.
I oftentimes will tell people that cheap is expensive and expensive is cheap, and price is only an issue in the absence of value. And again, you just demonstrated that. And one thing I've learned a long time ago is know when to say no. And your no provides a better yes for the next opportunity.
Right.
But share with me, how did you feel when somebody offered you, effectively two non-monetary items, which you could not purchase a drone with?
Right. Slime and a what?
And a stress ball.
Oh, it was a stress ball. Yeah, slime and a stress ball.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel? That's a great question.
How did I feel? I remember just feeling I was definitely confused at first. I wasn't sure if it was a joke or not, but then I definitely soon realized it was not a joke. And then I definitely was like, okay, Drew, you cannot, you can't do this. It's not worth it. I just felt kind of a little bit not as appreciated as I would have liked, but maybe not taken as seriously as I wish I had. But yeah, it's always, every once in a while some situations like that could happen.
And the key is not losing your cool, because
right, yes,
life is a marathon. Use a cliche. It's a marathon, and the no today will be a yes at some point later on. And you still want to give that bad experience in terms of what I've learned, because that no today will become a yes later. And I have many, 23 years of business, and I remember that client or customer that was so difficult to try to get years ago is the client today.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Randy and Drew, I remember I was selling commercial real estate, apartment buildings, and I was talking to this person from New York, and I had spent probably 15, 20 hours showing them deals. They flew in from New York. I toured all these properties. And then before they dropped me off, they said, by the way, we can't, and they wanted to sell and buy and this, they said, we can't pay you any commission, but we can pay you in rubies and diamonds. So I said, well, this is not the movie Aladdin. Like, you can't pay with the rubies and diamonds, and that. But so right. So I just reminded me of that story. I hadn't thought about it in a long time. But Drew, you're sharing wisdom that I know it just kind of seems off the cuff to you and natural to know not to be afraid to fail and not be afraid to what people think, and it takes money to make money and know your worth. These are things that, and I think Randy will agree, take many people decades and decades to learn. And so, and what'd you say?
Some never learned.
No, some never learned, right. And so what advice would you give those people that are 30, 40, 50, 60, in their 70s, in their 80s
I think it's just really important to know how to communicate and talk to people. It's really good to be able, personable, always looking each other in the eyes and, make contact. It's just really important to know how to talk to people and not take yourself too seriously. It's always good to joke around and, just enjoy it. Just tell, just look each other in the eyes without really,
Yeah.
So is there, for example, Drew, do you like watching Shark Tank?
I do. Yeah.
So which of the sharks do you most enjoy or see yourself as sort of following? I'm thinking Mr. Wonderful.
I was thinking that, or Mark Cuban, but they're all really great. I think they're all really impressive people. They're all really smart, definitely. If I could be half like them, I'd be set for life. That's for sure.
They say, Drew, that your generation, Generation Z, is going to be the greatest generation since the greatest generation. And a lot of people that I talk to in your generation are so forward thinking and have kind of the innate confidence and deeper awareness of just themselves and who they are at such a younger age than other generations, and just such a strong work ethic. And so, and it seems like a lot of people your age are very entrepreneurial. And so why, is it because of YouTube? Is it because of social media? Is it because of how easily things are accessible to learn? What are some of the factors you think that drive your generation?
Oh, it's definitely that you can learn anything on the internet. You can You can learn any skill you've ever thought, anything you need to know. You can learn how to code on the internet. You can learn how to design a website, and all that can come helpful to starting your own business. It's definitely the wide variety of things that you can learn on the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, the key is to learn and then execute, as opposed to sitting in front of the computer all day and learning or pretending to learn.
Yeah.
So, you're definitely somebody that's not wasting their talent, and I commend you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Drew, what question did we not ask you that we should have asked you about your business?
What questions? That if you ever need, well, I think that the most important thing is that if you think I might not do it, you can always ask. Feel free to always ask if it might not be listed on my card, but you can always ask. There's no harm in asking.
Tell people again what you do, Drew, and how they can connect with you.
I return cans and bottles. I water plants. I bake, and I will put mail and papers. And by the way, I never really talked about my cans returning. It's if you give me your cans and I'll return them. I'll give you half the money, so it's kind of like a win-win situation. So, I also mow lawns and pull weeds. Yes, you can always contact me at 248-914-4084 if you have any questions.
And do you have any? Are you on social media?
Yes, you can find me at DREWCO LLC on Instagram.
On Instagram. And talk a little bit about how you use social media to grow your business, or Nextdoor or flyers a little bit more. I think marketing is really important.
Yeah, marketing is really great, and Nextdoor is amazing. It's really how I got most of my clients for the lawn mowing. It's just so easy because anyone in your neighborhood will find it so quickly, and you can find anything. Like if you just want someone to water your plants, you can just say, "Hey, can somebody water your plants?" And then some kid like me will say, "Sure."
I love it. Drew, I've known you a long time. You're incredibly impressive. Today was kind of a mini master's class, wasn't it, Randy? People, like you infuse a lot of, what the positivity that the future is so bright because of the things that you're doing and your generation is doing. But, I know it's across the screen, but your guidance on don't be afraid to fail and don't care what people think, and it takes money to make money, invest in yourself, collaborate, effective communication, be prepared, always know your worth, and always know when to say no are absolutely key. So I congratulations on all your success and your continued success. You continue to be an absolute rock star and just a good human being and a kind person with a great heart. So, Randy, anything in closing?
It's remarkable at your young age that you have such a ruthless persistence and a laser focus.
Yeah.
And that is going to get you to the finish line many times over in your career. And, I look forward to seeing where you go. And I think it's only upward and onward. So congratulations on everything.
Yeah. All right. DREWCO LLC, anything you want to say in closing?
Just thank you so much, John. You've been a really big help to me. I could not have done all of this without you. Randy, you've been great too. I appreciate you. You've helped me so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I take zero credit, but I will ask one question in closing, right? So I know you're only 14 and you're about to start high school, but being a business person, people graduating college today are graduating into a different world. You've given a lot of advice today, but what advice would you give the person graduating college in today's world?
Make connections. Connections are key, I think, because you never know when you're going to need help in the future, who might be able to invest in your company. Connections are always helpful. Start early. The most connections you can get are the better.
Yeah. That's a mic drop. Randy, any thoughts?
It is. And that's exactly what I sent to you on LinkedIn earlier, the article on Warren Buffett and Bill Gates said that, and they had a little piece that effectively stood for the proposition, know the people in your network, and only have certain people in your network. And one of them is, have someone who makes you accountable. And number two, someone that you're going to grow with.
Yeah.
In other words, no one that's going to be holding you back. And your network is anything. That's an asset that many people have, but don't know how to monetize it.
Right.
When I say monetizing, not in the sense of finances, but growing from it as well.
Yeah. Your network equals your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Well said. Drew Lash, DREWCO, LLC. You're, I think, the youngest CEO we've had, and a return guest of the Think Business podcast.
Thank you.
So appreciate you being on the show. Continue to do great things, Drew. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. I really
Thank
appreciate
you, Drew.
it. Nice to meet you too, Randy.
Likewise. Thank you.
Randy, thanks. Always fun.
Likewise. Thank you.